It really does feel like the damage control surrounding Snow White is in full swing right now, at a time when studios would be trying to get ahead of all the bad press, or at least trying to be on the offense and starting to put out a lot of good publicity in the lead up to the release of their film, shoving their star in front of media outlets in order to try to get eyes on the movie. Instead, they're kind of retreating, and some of the friendly media outlets that Disney still has are kind of trying to shift blame away from some of the real problems, which just goes to show that people don't understand why this movie is so universally hated. So I'll get on that in a little bit in this article, but first let's look at what this says. Mainstream media continues to blame fans and Gal Gadot for Snow White PR nightmare instead of Rachel Zegler. Okay, that's kind of interesting to shift it away from Rachel Zegler. It really does feel like Hollywood wanted her to be kind of like the next it girl or something like that, or at least to be a lot bigger than what she is. I mean, we've seen her shoved in a lot of major budget movies in the last few years, but every one of them has seemed to flop, except for that Hunger Games movie. And even then, that was still the lowest performing Hunger Games movie. And it just kind of barely turned a profit, but it was still profitable. But other than that, it doesn't look like there's much of a career ahead for her, even though she says all the right politics for Hollywood. She's just not someone that the fans actually want to see. Disney's Snow White has been plagued with controversy for years, but now the mainstream media is working overtime to shift from the Snow White blame onto the fans and even Gal Gadot, instead of placing it where it belongs, on Disney's poor creative choices and Rachel Zegler's repeated missteps. And I do love this. They're trying to blame the fans again. Previously, Rachel Zegler criticized any criticism of the movie as basically being like toxic ists and phobes and other things like that. And then like a couple of weeks ago, she tried to backpedal on that and say like, oh no, they're just passionate fans. I guess we're back to blaming the fans again for any negativity surrounding the movie. A new article from The Hollywood Reporter acknowledged the film's marketing struggles and ongoing backlash, but rather than holding Zegler accountable for alienating audiences, it suggests that Snow White blame should be shared among culture war critics, Gadot's support for her home country of Israel, and supposed misinformation about the film's production. But again, they're not talking about what people are actually talking about online, which is a lot of the poor creative choices on the part of Disney, as well as Rachel Zegler's involvement. Shifting Snow White blame away from Zegler, Rachel Zegler's comments about the original Snow White have been a PR disaster since day one. She dismissed the classic as being extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power. She mocked the prince as a stalker and proudly declared that the remake was PC because it needed that. Quote, people are making these jokes about ours being the PC Snow White, where it's like, yeah, it is because it needed that, she said back in 2022 in an extra TV interview. Now, this girl clearly never had media training, or the media training that she did get before this movie was bad, because you're not supposed to say anything that risks alienating your audiences. And you can see the comparison between how she used to handle interviews a couple of years ago versus how she handles interviews now. Like I said, the comments that she made about fans being passionate a couple of weeks ago instead of being toxic, I think that was a good comment, but it doesn't feel like it's genuine. It just feels like she's just saying what other people are telling her to say, and it just comes a little like too little too late sort of thing. The remark sparked immediate backlash, as many fans felt that she was openly insulting the legacy of of one of Disney's most beloved films, and that's exactly what she was doing. And one of the problems and why this movie gets so much more heat compared to other Disney remakes, even their classic ones that are terrible, is because there's a lot of Disney fans who will pretty much watch anything Disney related, just so long as the new thing isn't openly insulting the previous one. Now, if you're trying to get those longtime Disney fans to watch your movie, the best thing you should do is not insult them for liking the original movie. I think we could probably start there, but again, that just was like one of the early remarks about this movie from Rachel Zegler, and it just kind of put a sour taste in people's mouths just right out the gate. Some of the other things, dragging Gal Gadot into the controversy. While Zegler has done plenty to stir controversy, The Hollywood Reporter bizarrely tries to place some of the Snow White blame on Gal Gadot, as well. This seems as though it could be some kind of media marching order, as just the day before Variety's Mark Malkin made a similar push. Unlike Zegler, who has gone out of her way to antagonize the fan base, Gadot's only so-called controversy is her assertion that she's a proud Jewish woman and sharing support for her home country of Israel while receiving an awkward award from the Anti-Defamation League. I'm not saying that there's people who are not going to see this movie because Gal Gadot's in it, because we know that there's pro-Palestinian people out there who say they're not going to watch it because of Gal Gadot's support of Israel. But I think those people are few and far between. I think the majority of people don't care, or we've seen that Gal Gadot movies have been successful, like the Wonder Woman movies, for instance. And also there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of backlash for this movie prior to all that stuff going on. So to try to say it's Gal Gadot that's stirring all this controversy, I think is taking a pretty big leap. The mysterious The Hollywood Reporter edit, Disney rewriting history. Perhaps the most revealing part of the Hollywood Reporter article isn't that it says, but what it changed after publication. The article was edited to downplay Disney mismanagement of the Seven Dwarfs controversy. Originally, the article admitted that Disney had initially cast a diverse group of actors of various sizes and genders to play the Seven Dwarfs, which was widely mocked when leaked set photos surfaced. The piece even noted that Disney later pivoted to using CGI dwarfs after the backlash. However, this was later changed to claim that the reports about the Seven Dwarfs were erroneous and that director Mark Webb always intended for them to be CGI from the start. This revision raises serious questions about whether Disney pressured the Hollywood Reporter to rewrite history and erase any mention of its previous course correction. If Webb had always planned for CGI dwarfs, why did these set photos exist? Why did Disney quietly make changes after the backlash? The attempt to rewrite the narrative is painfully obvious, and it shows just how desperate Disney is to distance itself from past mistakes. Now, I'm thinking there are media outlets who are a bit more friendly to Disney, and I want to say necessarily they'll take marching orders for them per se, as in like Disney will tell them what to write and they'll write it. But I think there are some media outlets who will give them the benefit of the doubt. And if Disney says something, they'll just kind of take them at their word for it instead of probing a little bit further. Because this Hollywood Reporter article that they're talking about, just take a look at the headline here. Inside Disney Snow White troubles, they need to get this over with. I think that's a pretty scathing headline, subheadline. Disney's live-action Snow White reboot starring Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot seemed like a can't-miss project 5 years ago, but have some PR missteps combined with anti-woke outrage turned marketing the film into a poisoned apple. So they're still somewhat negative, and I think if they were just taking pure marching orders from Disney like they're their PR wing, then you wouldn't get something like this. But I think when Disney does say that they're misrepresenting how things happened in the past, basically they deviated from their initial story, then they are willing to actually course correct. It even says at the bottom of the article, a previous version of the story incorrectly characterized the casting of the Seven Dwarfs. The Hollywood Reporter regrets the error. And that's because Disney didn't want to let it get out that they just messed up, because that's one thing they were trying to do. And what a lot of people believe they're trying to do was basically not have dwarfs, but just have regular sized people. And when those set photos were leaked and people were rightfully mocking them on it, on the aesthetic of all of it, they were trying to say like, oh no, this isn't the Seven Dwarfs. Just wait till the movie comes out. Then they delayed the movie for a year. And then the next thing that we got from it had these Seven Dwarfs and had no appearance of those other people that were in it. And I don't know. I mean, maybe they can try to make that claim that that was the intention all along. Maybe those people were just supposed to be stand-ins for them and they were going to CGI over them. And that was the intention the whole time. But just the timing of everything, the photos got leaked. Disney initially tried to deny that those photos were real before they got called out on that. And then they kind of like begrudgingly admitted like, oh yeah, those set photos are from our movie. And then they delayed the movie a year. And then they're like, yeah, see, the dwarfs are in it after all. It just seems all too convenient. And Disney trying to tell the Hollywood Reporter that that wasn't like them deviating or anything, and the Hollywood Reporter just accepting it. I find that a little bit, I don't know, just curious. I think they should at least put a note in there about all that other stuff surrounding this decision and these things that happened. But no, they just kind of be like, oh, well, Disney said that that wasn't the case, so we're just going to go with what Disney said uncritically whatsoever. Disney's unusual marketing strategy or lack of one. Adding to the chaos, Disney has been strangely reserved in its promotion of Snow White, unlike previous live-action remakes, which launched marketing campaigns months in advance. Snow White only began selling advance tickets less than 2 weeks before release, and so far those ticket sales haven't been very good for it anyway. Media spin won't save Snow White. Yeah, I don't really see how the media can help them on this one. Kind of going back to one of their initial points, talking about how this is culture war critics. Said, what does it say in the article here? With anti-woke outrage. So that's kind of what they're trying to frame this as. Is it's a lot of people online, I guess. I myself would be in that category because I talk about pop culture stuff online. They try to say that people like myself are the reasons why this failed. And first of all, well, thank you for giving me that much credit. But seriously, I mean, I know I'm just a small channel. There's a lot of bigger ones out there talking about this. But even then, I don't think people online have the power to influence a movie. I think what it is if you imagine it as kind of like a poll, where if you poll a number of people, you're not necessarily polling everyone within a certain population, but you can do enough where you can kind of extrapolate like, okay, this is probably the consensus among this population if you were able to poll a certain number of them. And I think a lot of people talking about stuff like this online is basically just that. It's not necessarily people influencing public opinion. They're basically just a voice for that public opinion. So if you see the consensus online is overwhelmingly negative, it's not because they're making it that way. It's because that's just the consensus among the public. And now some people might push back on that one, but we've seen time and time again where some people online, or even a lot of people online, have talked about an upcoming movie or show or video game and saying how this looks terrible, it looks like it's going to be bad, and then it comes out and it's like, oh wow, it's actually pretty good. I've even done that myself, where there's some things where I thought like, oh, this looks like it's going to be a disaster. Then I see it when it comes out and it's like, oh, to my surprise, it actually turned out pretty good. And I've even said that about this movie. I think it'd be more entertaining if it turns out that this movie is actually just a phenomenal hit and it makes billions of dollars at the worldwide box office, because when it comes out, if it just turns out to be a disaster, it's like, all right, that's kind of funny. It's exactly what I predicted, but I would actually like to be proven wrong in this situation. Unfortunately for Disney, I don't think I am going to be wrong in this situation, and it does look like this movie is just going to be a colossal failure for them. And that's why I think Rachel Zegler is going to have a tough time finding a career to salvage after this, because everything she seems to touch, well, she's just the opposite of the Midas touch. Let's just put it that way. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click the like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.